March 18, 1986. The set of Murphy's Law in Los Angeles. Director J. Lee Thompson was having a bad day. 3 scenes behind schedule, the studio breathing down his neck, and now the makeup was not right. He exploded at the makeup artist, a 29-year-old woman named Sarah Caldwell. "Are you fucking blind? Look at his face. He looks like a wax dummy. This is a major motion picture, not a goddamn student film. Do your job or get the hell off my set." Sarah stood frozen, makeup brush in hand, tears forming in her eyes. The crew went silent. This kind of verbal abuse was not unusual in 1980s Hollywood, but it was still uncomfortable to witness. Charles Bronson was sitting in the makeup chair during this tirade. He had been still and quiet, as he always was during makeup application. But as Thompson's screaming continued, something changed in Charles's expression. He stood up, makeup only half finished, and said 5 words that stopped production for 2 days. "I am going to my trailer." What happened next became a legendary moment in Hollywood history, not because of violence or drama, but because Charles Bronson chose to risk a multi-million-dollar production to defend someone who could not defend themselves. This is the untold story of the day. Charles Bronson taught a director that talent does not give you the right to appease people, and why sometimes the toughest thing you can do is simply walk away. Sarah Caldwell had been working in Hollywood makeup for 7 years. She had started as an assistant, learned her craft from veterans, and worked her way up to lead makeup artist on smaller productions. Murphy's Law was her first major studio film, a career-making opportunity that she would have been thrilled to land. She was good at her job, meticulous, creative, professional. But she was also young, female, and relatively inexperienced with high-pressure studio productions. That made her an easy target when things went wrong. Lee Thompson was a respected director with over 40 films to his credit. He would directed The Guns of Navarone, multiple Charles Bronson films, and was known for delivering solid commercial pictures on time and on budget. But he was also known for his temper, explosive outbursts when things did not go according to plan. The morning of March 18th had been difficult from the start. Equipment failures, an actor showing up late, weather issues affecting an outdoor shoot. They would have to move indoors. By the time Thompson got to the makeup trailer to check on Charles, he was already at his breaking point. Charles had been in the makeup chair for 20 minutes. Sarah was working carefully, applying the subtle aging effects the scene required. Charles's character had been in a fight, so there were bruises to create, cuts to simulate, swelling to suggest. Detailed, time-consuming work. Thompson burst into the makeup trailer. "How much longer? We are burning daylight here." Sarah looked up, startled. "About 15 more minutes, Mr. Thompson." "I am almost. 15 minutes. Jesus Christ, what are you doing in here? Painting the Sistine Chapel?" "I am sorry, sir." The bruising effects require multiple layers to look realistic. I do not need realistic. I need done. We are already behind schedule. Charles, who had been sitting quietly with his eyes closed, opened them. "She is doing fine, Lee. Let her finish." Thompson ignored him. He leaned in close to inspect Sarah's work, his face inches from hers. She could smell coffee and cigarettes on his breath. "This looks terrible," Thompson said, pointing at the bruise Sarah had been creating on Charles's cheekbone. "It looks painted on. It does not look real at all." "I have not finished layering. I can see you have not finished. That is the problem. You are too slow and the work is subpar. Did you even train for this job? Or did you sleep your way onto this production?" The words hung in the air like poison. Sarah's face went bright red. Several other crew members who had been in the trailer quickly found reasons to leave. Charles's jaw tightened, but he did not speak. Not yet. Sarah tried to defend herself. Thompson, I assure you I am qualified. Qualified? You call this qualified work? Thompson grabbed a makeup sponge from her kit and threw it on the floor. My 10-year-old daughter could do better makeup than this. You are wasting time, wasting film, and wasting my patience. Tears started rolling down Sarah's cheeks. She tried to wipe them away quickly, not wanting to show weakness, but they kept coming. Oh, perfect, Thompson sneered. Now she is crying. This is exactly what I need today. A crybaby makeup artist who cannot handle the pressure of a real production. That is when Charles stood up. He did not stand quickly. He did not jump to his feet in anger. He just slowly, deliberately stood up from the makeup chair, looked at Thompson, and said, I am going to my trailer. Thompson blinked. What? Charles, we need to finish makeup and get you on set. I am going to my trailer, Charles repeated. His voice was quiet, calm, completely controlled, which somehow made it more intimidating than if he would been yelling. Charles, come on, do not be dramatic. We are just trying to— I am going to my trailer, Charles said for the third time. And I am not coming back until you apologize to Sarah. Thompson's face went from red to purple. Apologize? For what? For expecting professional work? For trying to keep this production on schedule? For treating another human being like garbage, Charles said. He turned to Sarah. You are doing excellent work. The makeup looks perfect. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Then he walked out of the makeup trailer. Thompson stood there, stunned. The remaining crew members tried to make themselves invisible. Get back here, Thompson yelled after Charles. We have a schedule. We have a budget. You cannot just walk off set. Charles was already gone. Thompson stormed out of the makeup trailer and headed straight for the producer's office. Within minutes, an emergency production meeting was called. The assistant director, the line producer, the studio executive who had been on set that day, everyone gathered to discuss the crisis. Bronson walked off set, Thompson announced. Over nothing, over me, giving notes to the makeup artist. The line producer, a veteran named Frank Moretti, who had worked with Charles on 2 previous films, immediately knew there was more to the story. What exactly did you say to the makeup artist? I gave her feedback. I told her the work was not acceptable. What were your exact words? Thompson hesitated. I do not remember exactly. The point is, we have a spar refusing to work, and we are losing money every minute he is in his trailer. Frank turned to one of the crew members who had been present. What did he say? The crew member shifted uncomfortably. He yelled at her, called her work terrible, asked if she would slept her way onto the production. The room went quiet. The studio executive, a woman named Patricia Stern, closed her eyes and pinched the bridge of her nose. Jesus Christ, Lee, tell me you did not say that. It was frustration talking. We are behind schedule. I do not care if we are a year behind schedule. You do not talk to crew members like that, especially not with sexual implications. Do you have any idea the liability you just created? Frank stood up. I will talk to Charles. He walked to Charles's trailer and knocked. Charlie, it is Frank. Can I come in? Doors open. Frank entered to find Charles sitting calmly, reading a script. Not angry, not agitated, just reading. Lee told us what happened, Frank said. I am sure he did. He says you walked off over him, giving notes to the makeup artist. That is one way to describe screaming at a young woman, calling her incompetent, and implying she slept her way onto the production. Frank sat down. Charlie, I get it. Lee was out of line. But we have got a production to finish. We are already behind schedule. If you stay in here, we lose the whole day. Then we lose the day. The studio is going to be furious. Let them be furious. Frank leaned forward. Charlie, you have walked off sets before when something was wrong. But this is not your fight. This is between Lee and the makeup artist. Why are you making this your problem? Charles set down his script and looked at Frank. Because Sarah cannot fight back. If she tells Lee to go to hell, she gets fired and blacklisted. She loses her career. But I can tell him to go to hell, and he has to listen, because without me there is no movie. That is the difference between having power and not having power. So this is about power. This is about using power the right way. I have it. She does not. So I am using mine to protect her. Frank was quiet for a moment. What do you want? I want Lee to apologize to Sarah. Not a half-assed sorry if I offended you apology. A real one, acknowledging that what he said was wrong, that she is good at her job, and that it will not happen again. And if he refuses, then I go home and you find another actor. You would really walk away from this film? Charles looked at him steadily. Frank, I have walked away from $12 million over a contract clause. You think I will not walk away over someone being abused? Money means nothing if you are not a decent human being. Frank went back to the production meeting and relayed Charles's demands. Thompson exploded. Apologize to a makeup artist. This is insane. Charles is being completely unreasonable. Patricia Stern cut him off. Lee, shut up. Here is the situation. You verbally abused a crew member with sexual implications. That is actionable. She could sue the studio, and she would win. On top of that, our star has walked off set to defend her. So you have two choices. Apologize and save this production, or refuse, and we shut down the film, fire you for cause, and you never work for this studio again. What is it going to be? Thompson's face went through several emotions: anger, indignation, disbelief, and finally, resignation. Fine, I will apologize. Not just to her, Patricia added, to the entire crew. You need to make it clear that this behavior is not acceptable and will not be tolerated going forward. Frank went back to Charles's trailer. Lee's going to apologize to Sarah and to the whole crew. Charles nodded. I will come out when he does. 30 minutes later, the entire crew was assembled on set. Sarah stood near the back, still shaken, unsure what was happening. Thompson stood in front of everyone, looking like he would rather be anywhere else. I want to apologize, Thompson began, his voice stiff, for my behavior this morning in the makeup trailer. I spoke to Sarah Caldwell in a way that was unprofessional and inappropriate. The stress of production is no excuse for treating anyone disrespectfully. He turned to look at Sarah. Sarah, your work is excellent. I was wrong to criticize it, and I was especially wrong to make the comment I made. I am sorry. Sarah nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Thompson addressed the crew again. This production has been stressful, but that is not an excuse for anyone. Cool, keep cool. More, four, 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 four. Charles emerged from his trailer. He walked directly to Sarah. Are you okay? He asked quietly. She nodded. Thank you. You did not have to do that. Yes, I did. Can you finish my makeup now? Sarah managed a small smile. Yes, sir. They went back to the makeup trailer. This time, Thompson did not follow. Sarah worked in peace, taking her time, doing the detailed work she was skilled at. When she finished, Charles looked in the mirror. Perfect, he said. Just like I knew it would be. Production resumed. The day's scenes were completed, and life on set continued, but with a noticeable difference. Thompson was more careful with how he spoke to crew members. And crew members, knowing that Charles had stood up for one of them, worked with renewed dedication. Sarah Caldwell went on to have a successful career in Hollywood makeup. She worked on over 60 films, won an Emmy for television makeup, and became a department head at a major studio. In every interview she ever gave about her career, she told the story of March 18, 1986. "Charles Bronson saved my career that day," she would say. "Not just by defending me, but by teaching me something important. He showed me that you do not have to accept abuse just because someone has power over you. And he showed me that people with real power use it to protect others, not to hurt them." In a 2008 interview, she elaborated, "I was 29 years old, working my first major film, and I would been taught that directors were gods, that you took their abuse because that is how the industry worked. But Charles showed me that was not true. He showed me that even in Hollywood, basic human decency matters more than schedules or budgets or egos." What struck me most was how calm he was. He did not scream at Thompson. He did not threaten him. He just quietly withdrew his cooperation until things were made right. That is real power. Not the power to hurt people, but the power to stop hurt from happening. Lee Thompson and Charles Bronson worked together 2 more times after Murphy's Law, Kinjite, Forbidden Subjects, and Messenger of Death. Their professional relationship remained intact, but those who worked with them said Thompson was noticeably more careful about how he treated crew members when Charles was around. In Thompson's autobiography published in 2002, he addressed the incident. "I had a temper on set. I am not proud of it, but it is the truth. I believed that pressure and demands brought out better work. Charles Bronson taught me I was wrong. He taught me that you can demand excellence without destroying people's dignity. The day he walked off Murphy's Law was humiliating for me, but it was also educational. I became a better director because of it." The crew member who would witness the original incident and later told the producers what happened was a camera operator named Michael Torres. In a 2010 interview, he reflected on that day, "We were all shocked when Charles walked out. Stars did not do that. They might complain, they might demand things, but they did not walk off set over a makeup artist being mistreated. But that is who Charles was. He did not see a hierarchy where stars mattered and crew did not. He saw people, and when someone was being hurt, he stopped it. Simple as that." The incident became legendary in Hollywood, though like many Charles Bronson stories, it was rarely told publicly during his lifetime. But among crew members, the below-the-line workers who actually make films, the story spread. And Charles Bronson's reputation grew, not as a tough guy or action star, but as someone who protected the vulnerable. Years later, Sarah Caldwell's daughter became interested in filmmaking. When she told her mother she wanted to work in the industry, Sarah gave her advice: work hard, be professional, respect everyone on set, regardless of their position. And remember, if someone with power abuses it, there are still people like Charles Bronson who will stand up and say no. Be that person. Do not wait for someone else to defend what is right. Be the one who does it. March 18, 1986. A director screamed at a makeup artist. A star walked off set. Production stopped for 2 days. And a 29-year-old woman learned that she did not have to accept abuse to have a career, all because Charles Bronson understood something simple: power without decency is worthless. He had the power to walk away, so he did, not for himself, but for someone who could not. That is not acting. That is not a movie role. That is just Charles Bronson being exactly who he was. A man who would been powerless as a child, who remembered what it felt like to be bullied and abused, and who swore he would never let it happen to someone else if he could stop it. The tough guy who fought for the vulnerable. The action star who used his power to protect, not to dominate. The man who taught Hollywood that you can make great films without destroying the people who make them. That is the real Charles Bronson. And Sarah Caldwell spent the rest of her career making sure people knew it.